All right, cool. We're going to transition into Patreon. Okay.
And that's how we do that.
That's it. Robot dance transition.
Wow.
All right, Daryl. We just talked about our top 4 ways. We had more than 3 because we couldn't stick to just 3. We had to go.
There
4.
could be more than 4. I mean,
there could be a ton.
Yikes.
But now we're in the aftercast.
Yeah, I got to look something
special
up
for
because I'm
patrons.
going to have to show it to you eventually.
Ooh, okay. You can look that up. Now, interestingly enough, when we talk about Make It Better, we normally say for Patreon that
all bets are off.
All bets are off. You don't have to change. It's not just the story. You can change the directors. You can change whatever.
But one bet is not off.
One bet's not off. We can't change the director because we knew that this movie had a bunch of issues. But I do want to start the show by asking you if you could pick a Joss Whedon directed movie or a Zack Snyder directed movie, which one would you choose?
Snyder.
Same here. I thought we were going to argue about this. I thought you were going to pick Whedon.
No. That's funny. I almost thought you were going to pick Whedon.
Oh, really? No way.
No, I'd go Snyder because I think if you look at their track records as filmmakers, if we set aside Whedon's television stuff, which is mostly very successful.
Yeah.
If you look at their track record as filmmakers, I think Snyder's is stronger.
Oh, okay.
I think Whedon gave me one of the best sci-fi films I've ever seen in my life. He made Serenity.
Yeah.
And that's great. But those are his characters. That's his world building, and that's where he really shines.
Right.
I think Snyder is better at working with existing characters.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense.
So
I like that. I think Snyder, I agree with Snyder. I would choose Snyder as well. However, I do have to admit that I would have given him a story. I wouldn't have let him write the story.
Yeah.
I do believe he does better. Like, for example, if you
have so much talent sitting
I was just gonna say
at DC.
Jeff Johns could
let
come
Jeff
in and
Johns
write
it. Let Jeff Lemire write it.
Yeah.
Let Tom King write it.
There's a ton
let
of good
Scott
people.
Snyder write it.
Exactly.
Scott Snyder is writing the Justice League comic right now, and it's one of the best Justice League stories I've ever read in my life.
See, why not?
It's fantastic.
It doesn't make any
sense. Why not let him do it?
So we can't break the rules. We can't change the director. We already know that. We can change casting and stuff like that. What's your number 2 selection for the Patreon listeners?
Okay. I'll go with the less impactful one first, I guess. I would fire Danny Elfman.
That's a great point.
I would, because he changed the entire tone of these movies. Even with different directors, even if it was a fully Joss Whedon directed film, if you let Hans Zimmer continue his work and do the score, there would be so much more consistency, rather than what Danny Elfman did, where he come in and snuck like his old Batman stuff into it. That opening scene with the parademon feels like it's out of a Tim Burton film because it's Danny Elfman's music.
It's true.
It's so overpowering.
It's totally true.
And then even the stuff that he didn't take from other movies, it just feels different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman felt. And changing it a little bit is fine, but I think it was too drastic.
Yeah.
I think let Hans Zimmer do it. Sure, give him a collaborator.
Sure.
But maybe something more like a Michael Giacchino or a Marco Beltrami or somebody who is not so specific in their tone.
Yeah. Well, especially because Hans Zimmer had such an iconic scores going back through the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah.
And that was and these movies were hearkening back to those.
Right.
Again, it was like, we should do Justice League. We should connect it to these pre-existing things, except let's not.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Let's make it our own, but not our own.
I'm totally on board with that one. In fact, that one even missed my radar, but I'm totally on board with that one.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 2 choice is, so I'm going to get back to, my number 1 choice would be getting back to what I was talking about in the main podcast. But this is another side comment that I have that ends up being my number 2 focus here.
Okay.
And that is make Batman way more powerful. He is
more powerful.
Yeah, he's stupid in this movie. Like he basically is like.
You don't mean give him powers.
No.
Give him a more powerful stuff to do.
Well, I say Batman in the Justice League holds his own against all of the big bad villains.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he has no superpowers. So I'm not saying give him superpower. I'm not saying that at all.
Sure.
I'm saying he seems like a wimpy dude. It's like, hey, can you throw me over there? Oh, I mean, I don't know. Can you go handle that for me? Because I have to do. I mean, it's not good. Like
to me, it's almost even not. He's not physically wimpy. He's mentally wimpy.
It's both.
It's both. Like when he's talking to Diana when they're walking by the lake.
Yeah.
And he says, I think he says the name Mother Boxes.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, I'm impressed." And he's like, "Don't be. I have no idea what they do." It's like, don't say that like that.
Yeah.
I get that you're trying to be relational between the two of them, but that undermines him completely.
I'm a giant idiot, but I'm rich.
But I'm rich. Yeah, that's my superpower.
Yeah. Okay, what's your number one?
I'm going to recast The Flash. I have to do that.
Recast.
I no hate for Ezra Miller. I loved him in Fantastic Beasts. I thought he was great. I haven't seen a lot of his other work. I do think his public behavior is really distracting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to what he's doing.
He showed up at Comic-Con in like a unicorn outfit this year, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I saw one picture of it. It was weird. But
new role?
Even last year at Comic-Con, before Justice League came out, and they had the panel with him, like he's just so... His personality is so big, and he's not at all reserved. And he's just he's a geek, which is great. So he loves this stuff. That's cool. But he's just so, he like sucks all the energy out of the room,
really?
I think. But that's aside from the story. Like he's an actor. He can put all that aside, whatever.
Sure.
I just feel like, and again, I don't want to be an angry fanboy, and I'd like to think that I'm not an angry fanboy.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting here saying this sucks.
Yeah,
I like this movie a lot. But I would have liked to have seen a Barry Allen that was a little bit closer to his ideal version in the comics. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Ezra Miller looks like that. Right. That's not necessarily a death sentence. I think you can overcome that.
Sure.
We could have had an Asian Flash or an African-American Flash. Yeah. And if it's the right personality, it's the right personality.
Right.
But I don't think Ezra has the right personality. I think we need somebody who's a little more confident.
Ezra Miller doesn't... He may be acting really well. He doesn't feel like he's acting.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm Ezra Miller doing this, pretending I'm the Flash today.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. So my choice, and granted this is a bit of a risky choice because I don't think I've actually watched anything that this guy's in.
Yeah.
I've seen trailers. He's British, so I automatically have a lot of hope in it.
Yeah.
But his name is Alex Pettyfer. Okay. And I don't know if you've ever seen him before.
British name.
That's what he looks like.
Yeah, he looks like the Flash.
So he looks exactly like the Flash. I know you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, you can't see him. Go look him up. Go Google Alex Pettyfer.
I still think it's the most British name I've heard.
Yeah,
today,
yeah. But I think he could pull it off really well. He's a couple years older than Ezra, which is good. So not too far. He could still be younger than Batman and all that kind of stuff. But I just get more of a quiet confidence vibe from him as someone who could inspire the characters around him rather than sort of be slave to their personalities.
Totally.
So
I like it. All right, so I talked about making the Superman trilogy, right?
Yeah.
And then going to Justice League.
Yeah.
I actually want to expand that a little bit because one of the things I think that DC does better than Marvel is that they tie their characters' identity to a city that has issues that the character is trying to deal with, and it makes it sort of like a community of people dealing with issues, and they have a superhero that's trying to help with that, right?
Yeah, the only one that Marvel really has is Spider-Man.
Exactly. Because otherwise it's like New York.
Yeah.
Right? And like Hell's
Which
Kitchen
is where
is
a lot of those characters are too.
Yes.
Like Hell's Kitchen is in New York.
Exactly.
And then I think the Baxter Building, Fantastic Four, I think that's in New York.
I
like
think so
a lot
too.
of it's in New York.
Yeah. So a lot of it happens in New York, which is fine. I'm not saying that's bad, but I think this concept of cities is really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen. In fact, I would even think that if you named the movies this, like you could have had The Mascara, you could have had Gotham, you could have had Central City,
Atlantis,
and each one of those films is about them overcoming a villain. But the through line in all of them is that while they're trying to overcome this smaller villain that's in their city or in their land, at the same time, Lex Luthor is working to bring Darkseid in.
Yeah.
And so you have them dealing with this small problem, but each movie ends, and then you go into the after credit scene, which I know they don't do just because of Marvel, which they should do anyways. The after credit scene is about the little tweak Lex is making to bring in Darkseid. And then so these people, so the cool character arcs you have is, how do I become a hero in my city? How do I become a hero in the bigger picture?
Yeah.
So each of them has their own city. So and they all have their own story that takes place in that city, which is why I would dump Cyborg. Because he doesn't really have his own city. Yeah. So I would take him out. You could even do a Martian Manhunter where
he could have his own city, though. I'm going to look this up to see if I'm accurate. I believe in the comics, Cyborg comes from Detroit, and that's a big part of who he is. But
well, then that's cool. You could add him back in about being that could be his city.
Yeah,
that'd be totally fine with me. But I think that would be a really fascinating way to build to the bigger picture, because it's not how Marvel did it.
Yeah.
So if we were able to, Marvel kind of took like all of these figures who were doing stuff, and then they tied them together.
Yeah.
But if you took the cities and then tied the cities together in a war with Darkseid, I think that would have been different enough that it would be really powerful storytelling.
Yeah.
So that's my number one.
I can't readily find any proof that Cyborg is from Detroit, so that may have been one story that I read or something that I'm remembering wrong, but whatever.
Well, yeah. So,
okay,
your top two were what? You were going to recast
the Flash and fire Danny Elfman.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick fire Danny Elfman. Okay. My two are make all the movies. So Superman trilogy. He has a trilogy. The others don't.
Yeah.
And then make the city movies and then tie them all together with Darkseid coming to try and take over all the cities and all the lands. And then my other one was make Batman a more intimidating and imposing presence.
I like that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We didn't prep for this.
Yeah.
Let's actually go ahead and break our last rule.
And we can do the director?
Who would you want to direct this movie?
Okay, let's make it even more realistic than that. Let's make it, who do we want to direct the movie that you wrote for Justice League?
Okay.
So let's go back over some of the key elements from yours. You got to have Darkseid coming in to resurrect Superman and use him against the others.
Yes.
You're going to have Martian Manhunter come in instead of Cyborg because he can mentally deal with Superman.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the other...
Flash is a different character completely.
Right. He's more... He's somebody that reminds people of what they're supposed to be. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I have potentially a really controversial choice. Scott Derrickson.
Oh, that's not controversial. I could see that.
I don't know that he's done any ensemble films.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I say that is because I think he did something pretty... Scott Derrickson and James Gunn, which recent controversy, he could be hired.
Yeah.
he's got the time to do it.
Yeah.
But Scott Derrickson and James Gunn did something, and James Gunn did it with an ensemble, so maybe he would be even better. But I think they brought a level of depth and darkness to Marvel that a lot of the other directors didn't. The Russo brothers have actually gotten there in some of the in Infinity War for sure.
To be clear, just because this is in my head after you said that, to be clear, we are not saying in any way that Scott Derrickson has a history of offensive tweets. It felt a little bit to me like, I know that's not what you're saying.
No,
but when you line him up with James Gunn, it almost felt like we were making that connection.
No, I'm picking two directors. It occurred to me as I was talking about Scott Derrickson that James Gunn would also be a really good choice. But the reason why they're good choices is because I think that they bring a level of darkness that Snyder was playing with in his films into their equation, but they don't have some of the storytelling aspects that Snyder kind of screwed up. So I think that those two would be really good choices. And I mainly thought of Scott Derrickson because of the Martian Manhunter meeting Superman on this like mental plane.
Oh, right,
fighting.
sure, yeah.
Like that would be really good for Scott Derrickson to take.
He's good with those kind of visuals.
Very good with those kind of visuals.
Yeah.
Whereas I think like James Gunn would be really good with the rest of the film.
That makes sense.
Who would you pick?
Who do you think I'd pick?
Krasinski.
Kaczynski or Krasinski.
Yeah,
one of the two.
One of the two, yeah.
I would pick Zack Snyder.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So you'd have him just carry forth his vision.
I think now I will throw the caveat in that like you said earlier, I would rather have somebody else write it.
Yes.
I think maybe Scott Snyder would have been a great choice to write it. I know maybe he's not used to writing movies, so let him work with Chris Terrio or somebody who is. Let them collaborate on it.
For context, for people that don't know, Scott Snyder is a DC writer.
He is.
And he's phenomenal.
He's one of the best writers to ever touch the DC characters.
Yes.
I mean, he's fantastic.
He's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, not to keep subverting you, but like when you talk about like Scott Snyder and you talk about Tom King, DC has some of the best writers in the business.
For sure.
Now.
Jeff Lemire also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're signing
it's insane.
on DC. Brian Michael Bendis jumped ship to go over to DC.
Marv Wolfman is still doing some DC work.
Yeah.
They have Francis Manapul, Brian Bucoletto, lots of incredible people.
Yeah.
So yes, I actually do want Zack Snyder to direct this movie in its entirety with no help from anybody else.
Yeah.
I'd like him to have more freedom.
Yep.
Obviously, it feels like Warner Brothers was choking them.
Yeah.
Because I think the visual symmetry is really important. At least Justice League has a little bit of that.
Right.
Visually, it feels like a third film in this saga.
True.
And after that, if you make another Justice League movie, change it up. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think Zack Snyder's visual approach is so specific that I would have liked to see that carried through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So make it look like Zack Snyder, make it sound like Hans Zimmer, bring somebody else in to write it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, the consistency. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think it would have been cool to see Snyder do a Superman trilogy without trying to add all the other elements in.
Yeah.
And then to have someone else write that and have him do it. If you brought in like a Jonathan Nolan to write that series, one of the things I think they could have done better when they transitioned from Christopher Nolan's vision to then Christopher Nolan producing Zack Snyder's vision.
Yeah.
They could have given Zack Snyder more of what Chris Nolan had to work with.
Yeah.
Besides just Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
and I think that would have helped him out a lot from a mentorship standpoint. That would have been really cool, but
that would have been good. I was going to say something else. Oh, in regards to another Superman film, because they are talking about Man of Steel 2.
Yes.
It's not for sure. We don't know if it's going to happen exactly. If it does, it'll be a couple years away still. But film, and this is a Mission Impossible Fallout connection, is Christopher McQuarrie.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Dude,
and I guess that comes from a conversation he had with Henry Cavill on the set of Mission Impossible or something. I don't know. But that guy is a freaking genius.
Yeah.
I mean, his writing and his directing, he's incredible. And when you go see these Mission Impossible films, Rogue Nation and this new one, Fallout, and you consider the fact that he and Tom Cruise are basically crafting these movies as they go. They don't start with a finished script.
Do they not?
No.
Oh, that's crazy.
They craft it as they go, and it comes out as cohesive as it is, and it's insane.
That's crazy.
So I would love to see him get his hands on Superman.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys always for being patrons. We love our patrons. They do such an amazing job of suggesting content and giving us comments. So we really appreciate you guys, and hope you're looking forward to Scary Movie Month.
Scary Movie Month.
Yeah, it should be really fun.
Starts next week.
Next week already, which is
that is
insane.
if you're listening to this within the week that it comes out.
It
right. Starts Tuesday, August 7th. We'll put it that way.
And don't forget, pay attention in the Facebook group if you're on Patreon, and pay attention to this Patreon post, because we'll be letting you know when we're recording, so that you can, if you're a $3 a month Patreon supporter or above, if you support us for $3 a month or more a month, you can get access to the live recordings on YouTube Live. On YouTube Live, you'll be able to watch us. We're going to send out a link to YouTube Live. It's going to be a restricted link. So it's unlisted, so unless you don't have the link, you won't know that we're doing it.
Right.
And we will hang out with you for about a half an hour or so afterwards.
And to be clear, this won't be as produced. I put produced in air quotes because it's not like we produced our live shows all that much. But these won't be as produced as those.
No.
Because this is really just you watching us do the podcast.
Yeah, you're just going to watch us do the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is super fun. There's tons of podcasts that I would love to watch them record.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Cool. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for being a Patreon supporter. Oh, by the way, if you upgrade to $5, you get to answer the question of the week, and we will read your answer.
That's right.
On the podcast. So that's a kind of a cool new feature, cool new tier. You guys can check that out. Thanks again for listening. Question everything in your favorite geek stories.
And always seek the truth.